Research shows that only 8% of people actually achieve their New Year's resolutions by year end. And without tracking or structure, 1 in 3 give up by February. Most people fail with their New Year's resolutions because they only focus on all the things that they need to do rather than on the habits they need to build and who they need to become. As Jim Rohn once said, if you want more than you have, you must become more than you are. That's why my 12-month roadmap isn't so much about what you'll do, but more about who you will become in the process. Each month we'll focus on one bite-sized skill or habit related to making, saving, spending, and investing money, so that by the end of the year, you'll not only be a lot richer, but you will have become the kind of person who can build on that success for years and years to come. So with that, let's start with January. January is all about building the habit of tracking and awareness. I want you to get a snapshot of your full financials. We're talking income and expenses, your net worth, in other words, your assets and liabilities. Especially in the area of finances, it is so easy to want to stick your head in the sand. That's actually a very common approach where money just seems too overwhelming. You don't think you'll ever get a handle on it, so you'd rather just not know what's going on. It's very human nature to want to do that, but if you want to win with money, it starts with always knowing exactly where you stand. Because how can you get from point A to point B if you don't even know what your point A starting point is? So here's how to get a snapshot of your financials of where you stand today. First, you need to track income and expenses. What money is coming in? What exactly is your take-home pay? And then where is all of that money going? I want you to go line item by line item to see over the last 6 to 12 months, what is the monthly average that goes to each of these spending categories. This is called a spending audit, and it is going to be completely eye-opening. You can also use apps like YNAB or Empower. I'll link to both of those below, where you can link up your credit card, your checking account, everywhere there's money movement, and it'll actually tell you all the averages in just a few clicks. So you don't have to do any of the manual heavy lifting. You can also do it the old-fashioned way through spreadsheets, but bottom line is you want to get an accurate sense for where your money has actually been going. And then as you review your spending, look at the numbers and see how they make you feel. If you see any patterns that are surprising to you, that's just good data. You don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to beat yourself up over it. Just take a look, take a note of what needs to be changed, what could be improved. That will be your spending audit. Once you've done that, the next step is to look at your net worth. Get a list of all of your assets, all of your savings, your investments, your retirement accounts, and that will be your assets. And then on the liability side, get a sense for everything that you owe. What are your credit card balances, student loan balances, any other unpaid bills and debt that you owe? And then the difference between your assets minus liabilities, that will be your net worth. To make this easier for you, I actually have a free spreadsheet template that you can download where you can fill out your financial snapshot. I even have a little tutorial in there on how to do a spending audit. And this also has a net worth tracker as well. So grab that below, the link is below. If you wanna win with money, you have to start tracking your finances. It's just like if you wanted to improve at a sport or improve your body composition or lose weight, you would wanna track what food you eat, right? How much protein are you getting? How many calories? How many reps of weights are you lifting? When you are serious about something, you start tracking what you're doing towards that. So that is what January is about. Getting clarity, getting your financial snapshot. And if you want a head start on this, grab my free spreadsheet template below. It's super helpful and it's completely free. Next up is February. Now it's time to create a budget, or basically a more conscious plan for how you want to spend your money going forwards. When you're creating your budget, it's a really good rule of thumb to stick to the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your money should go towards needs. This is anything that is needed for survival, whether that's keeping a roof over your head, buying groceries, transportation, electricity, utilities, insurance payments, student loan, credit card debt minimums, all that goes into needs. And then 30% of your spending ideally goes towards wants. This is anything that just makes your life better, but isn't necessarily needed for survival or to stay out of trouble. This could be eating out, fun things like going to the movies, going out to bars and restaurants, concert tickets, travel, etc., etc. And then the remaining 20% of your spending, if you can swing it, would go towards future stuff, future savings and investments. Anything that would add a zero to your net worth, in other words, boost your net worth by increasing your assets or lowering your liabilities, that is what goes in this 20% bucket. As for what to do with this 20% bucket, here are some ideas. One, I suggest starting with building a $2,000 starter emergency fund. This is a quick win that you can knock out relatively quickly. Once you've done that, put a lot of extra payments towards your credit card debt. Something else you can do in this 20% bucket is contribute contributing enough to your 401k to get your full employer match. And then once you've done all those three, you can also think about building a bigger emergency fund, one that would cover you for 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And then if you've done all of that, another thing you can do with your 20% bucket is to open a Roth IRA. You want to create a budget that's actually realistic, one that actually reflects your real life. So one thing that derails a lot of people when creating budgets is they forget to budget for irregular expenses. Yes, I'm sure you know exactly what goes out to rent, exactly what you spend on your insurance for your cell phone bill. I'm sure you also know roughly what you spend on food. All of those monthly things, I'm sure you know exactly what you spend, but have you also factored in those irregular one-off expenses, like when you have to replace your car tires every 3 years, when you have to buy Christmas presents or buy flight tickets to go home for Thanksgiving? Those kind of things that don't happen every month, you also need to factor those in. And the best way to factor those into your monthly budget is to take the average annual amount and divide that by 12 and make that a monthly expense. You got to treat it like a bill so that it's a line item in your budget. You know that you have to set aside money for that every single month so that by the time the expense actually rolls around, you have that money sitting in your account. This gives you a realistic budget that actually tells you what your life actually costs. So that one big hair coloring appointment that you have once or twice a year that costs $300, you have to also factor that in on a monthly basis. The muscle that we are building here in February is the habit of telling your money what you would like it to do rather than being reactive, because these expenses are going to come up anyway, so you might as well anticipate them ahead of time and find a way to be prepared for them. This is how you start putting yourself in the driver's seat of your money, telling your money what to do rather than always playing catch up. Now, this doesn't mean that you will be following your budget every single month down to the dollar, down to the T. It's just about having a general plan. So I want you to spend the month of February creating and perfecting your budget, knowing that it's not something you will necessarily be following down to the T, because also life happens and budgets have to adjust. That's why March is about practicing following your budget. Ironically, you made this budget, but budgets are actually meant to be adjusted and changed. This is where most people actually completely abandon their budgets, because the minute they go over their budget in one of their categories, they start beating themselves up, thinking that they're a failure, and they completely scrap their budget. Rather than doing that, practice adjusting your budget as you go. If you do find that you exceed in one category, then look at the rest of your budget and see where that money can come out of instead. Because the truth is, life is very dynamic. There's always changes happening. So your budgets are meant to be dynamic as well. You can't expect to follow a certain set fixed number of percentages, dollar down to the dollar every single month for the rest of your life. It's just not realistic. So the skill and muscle that we're building here in the month of March is sticking to your budget even when you have to make a lot of adjustments along the way, and not beating yourself up about it, just making changes. At the end of the day, having a plan that you just adjust and tweak a lot along the way is still better than not having a plan for your money at all. A couple more tips for following your budget. One is to learn how to automate everything. For example, in your budget, you created your 20% bucket for future savings and investments. Make sure you automate all of that into accounts that are separate from your everyday checking spending account. For example, if you are building an emergency fund, you should have a high yield savings account separate from your checking account. I'll link to my favorite high yield savings accounts below, but I want you to create an automatic transfer out of your checking account to that savings account every single month, like clockwork, so that it happens whether you remember to or not. This is a really great hack for tricking your brain into saving money, because the thing is, you're only going to spend what's in front of you. If you don't see the money because it got automatically transferred out to a savings account somewhere else, chances are you're gonna forget about that money. You're not really gonna think of it as money that you can spend because it's not in your checking account balance that you see every single day. So if you ever had a hard time saving money because you don't follow your budget or your best intentions for saving, this is the #1 hack to get out of that cycle. Once you've automated that 20% out into savings, to your Roth IRA, to your 401k, to extra debt payments, when that 20% is gone from your checking account, now go ahead and pay all of your bills, the 50% for needs, and then the rest, the 30% you've budgeted for once, you can now spend whatever is left guilt-free. This is the best way I found to follow your budget without having to track every single dollar and spend your entire life tracking things in the spreadsheet. Another approach that I love is using an app like YNAB. This is actually the most detailed approach. This is where you track every single dollar. And to be honest, it's not for everybody. If you love nerding out and tracking every dollar and knowing exactly where all of your money is going, you might like this approach. But for most people, I would say the automated budgeting approach that I just explained is going going to be the best way to go. So far, January, February, March, we have talked about tracking your financials, creating a budget, and building the muscle of following and tweaking your budget as you go. All of this is to help you become someone who is mindful about how you spend money, someone who tracks your money, someone who is proactive about what happens to your money. Now, in the month of April, it's time to shift gears and put together a game plan to negotiate a raise 6 months from now. So starting in April, you are going to prepare to ask for a raise at your current job, to negotiate a raise in the month of October. You have to do this 6 months in advance because you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm gonna ask my boss for a raise. If you want a successful negotiation, you need to start building your case now. So here's how this works. Starting today, you are going to start documenting every accomplishment, achievement, or contribution you make to your company. Whether it's an email from a boss that tells you what a good job you did, or it's some sort of a sales report where you help the numbers increase, any sort of quantifiable piece of data that proves your value to the company, you're gonna wanna document all of that. I like to call this a why I'm awesome file. I like to have one for my personal life. I like to have one for my professional life. And this is gonna be huge when you go in to ask for that raise, because you're gonna come in with a whole list of why you deserve that raise. And then because you are documenting things, you're also gonna be proactive about looking for ways to have more impressive things to document about. So you're gonna be raising your hand for challenging projects. You are going to look for opportunities to up-level, to take a certification or a class to improve your skills, anything that's going to help you massively add value to your team. I also want you to start researching what is the salary range for someone in your role. Because just because your company offered you a certain salary doesn't mean you couldn't potentially get paid more. There's always a range, and you can check out websites like levels.fyi. That was a really great resource to see what is the top end of the range and the bottom end of the range of salaries for someone of your experience level in your position. There's always going to be a very wide range, and that's actually good because there is your room for negotiation. Because if you find that you are getting paid in the middle of the range, right there in the median, then you can argue that based on all of your accomplishments, you deserve pay that is closer to the top of that range. You're not going to ask for this negotiation yet. That's coming in October, so stay tuned for that. But basically, in this month of April, it's about owning that posture and stance of, if I don't ask, I don't get. If I want to be valued and paid what I'm worth, I need to make that happen for myself because no one's gonna make that happen for me. That is the attitude that will get you paid top dollar. In the month of May, I challenge you to negotiate at least one bill or service down from whatever the asking price is. Again, it's about realizing that with your money, if you don't ask, you don't get. It is your job to not only make sure you're earning top dollar, but also to save as much of your hard-earned money as you can by negotiating prices down, so you never have to pay more than you absolutely have to. Some really easy things to negotiate are your car insurance bill, any sort of insurance bill, your utility bill, or if you're buying a new car or a used car, you can negotiate your car price. If you have a parking ticket, you can try negotiating that down. If you have credit card debt, you could try negotiating your interest rate down. Pretty much anything is up for negotiation. And one of the most powerful tricks to win at any negotiation is something that I call anchoring. Anchoring is where you set the starting point of your negotiation. You always want to be the first person to anchor the price to start the negotiation, because if the other party sets the starting price, you are at a disadvantage. For example, let's say you're buying a used car and the car dealer tells you, this car is $15,000. Well, without anchoring, you would be starting at his anchored and negotiating down from there. Without anchoring, you would say, okay, we're starting at 15,000. That's kind of high. Can you go down from there to 13,000? But with anchoring, you would say, I've researched cars with this level of mileage and in a similar condition. And based on what I've seen, 12,000 is a lot closer to what I've seen. So that's what I had in mind. So now once you've anchored the negotiation at your starting price of $12,000, now the car dealer has to work up from there to get closer to his desired price. It's a lot easier to get the price you want when someone has to negotiate you up from a lower price rather than you having to negotiate someone down from a higher price. Of course, for anchoring to work, you do need to research a good anchor price. You can't just throw out random numbers, but I just wanted to show you that there's a real skill. There is strategy to negotiating, and it's a skill you're going to want to master to keep more of what you make. Again, this is all about learning the skill of advocating yourself. It's a habit. People who know how to advocate for themselves and their money, they not only get to earn top dollar, but they also keep a lot more of what they make. All right, in the month of June, this is a fun one. June is about doing a sprint towards one financial goal that you have. Here's what I mean by a sprint. A sprint is a very short, intense burst of effort towards one very specific financial goal. For example, maybe you're gonna knock out one entire credit card balance on one of your cards in the month of June. And you are going to get creative. You're gonna hustle up some extra money by selling stuff around the house, old stuff that you don't use, do a little side hustle, babysitting or dog sitting, whatever you can do to hustle up extra money really fast and throw all of it towards that credit card balance. Or maybe it's to save up $2,000 really quickly in 1 month. Whatever the financial goal is, the idea is to do a sprint to cut out any sort of discretionary expenses just for a short period of time so that you can make serious, massive progress on one really specific goal. The point of doing a sprint is to show yourself that you can do hard things, that you can make massive strides in your finances, to give you that big hit of dopamine and sort of snap you out of the inertia of just being used to your finances the way they are. The benefit of a sprint is that it can actually be kind of fun because in a way it's gamified. You're like doing a little competition with yourself. It's also easier to do because you know that it's not going to be forever. It's a lot easier to cut out your, Starbucks latte habit if you know that it's just for 1 month and then you can go back to it right after. You can do anything when you know that it's temporary. The point of doing this sprint in June is to start building that confidence that you do have what it takes to make serious strides in your finances and also to show you that it can even be fun. All right, now when we get into the month of July, I want you to start donating something to charity. This is really counterintuitive, but it's also very powerful. Whether it's $10 a month or $100 a month or even more, whatever you can handle in your budget, I want you to start donating to charity as a regular line item in your budget. The point of doing this is to start cultivating an abundance mindset. Because if you think about it, the energy of being rich, of having wealth, is the energy of having more than enough, of having overflow from which you can give more. And the thing is, you're not gonna be able to attract more money if you're embodying this energy of scarcity. Scarcity is, there isn't enough, I don't have enough, there isn't enough to go around, I don't have any extra to give. You would think that when you have money, that's when you'll be able to have an abundance mindset, but it doesn't work that way. You actually need to have the abundance mindset first before abundant money comes into your life. And that's actually how money will come into your life more abundantly. I know it's counterintuitive, but it's about embodying the energy and frequency of wealth before you even have it. And that's what's gonna bring it to you. So when you donate to charity, even just the act of doing that, even if it is just $10, you're already saying, I have more than enough, I have overflow, and I can give $10 to someone who needs it more. And really, if you do think about it, you do have at least $10 to give to someone who is less fortunate than you. Especially if you live in America, that already means you are ahead of the vast majority of people on the planet. If you have a Wi-Fi connection, a roof over your head, enough to pay your cell phone bill, if you have an iPhone, you do have extra to give. So if you want to make this your richest year yet, I encourage you to find ways to start embodying that abundance mindset and the frequency of overflow and wealth. The best way to do this is to find a charity that you care about and set up an automatic donation. I really like Charity Water. I've been donating to them for many years now, but you find something that feels good to you. And if you find yourself feeling reluctant to do this, like you don't think you can handle it in your budget, that's actually a sign that you should definitely go and do this. And now in the month of August, I want you to start investing. Or if you're already investing, I want you to increase the amount that you're investing. A lot of people think that investing is just for the wealthy. That's actually really far from the truth. Investing is how you actually get wealthy. Because if you don't learn how to make money work for you, you are always gonna be working for money for the rest of your life. Putting money to work for you, investing it, that is a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned. So if it feels scary for you, if you've never invested before and the idea of not having your money right where you like to see it in your savings account is scary to you, just know that you just need to gather more knowledge, because knowledge is what counteracts fear. I have a really great Investing for Beginners playlist here if you want to start learning about it. But the bottom line is you want to start learning about it and not wait too long, because the longer you wait, the more you miss out on the power of compounding returns. Just to give you an idea, if you started investing just $500 a month starting today, in 30 years, you will have over $1 million. This is based on the historical returns of the S&P 500 over the past century. That is the power of compounding and of investing and putting your money to work. So the skill that I'm talking about here, the habit you want to develop in August, is the act of putting your money to work. When you get money, don't just hold on to it in a bank account. Don't just hoard it there. Don't just spend it. Of course, spend some of it, but take a portion of it and put that money to work for you and create an infinity loop with that money. In order to do this, you're gonna have to get over your fear of investing. Again, knowledge counteracts fear, and you're gonna have to let go of the need for absolute certainty. People who don't invest do it because they just can't bear the thought of having uncertainty with their money. If they have $1,000 in the bank account, they want to see $1,000 the next day, and the next. They do not want to see any fluctuations. And that's why those kind of people also will never see gains and will never see their money working for them. So that's how to embody the investor attitude, is embracing uncertainty in exchange for bigger gains down the road. Okay, now in the month of September, I want you to learn how to build extra income streams. Start a side hustle. To have multiple income streams, you need to embody this attitude of, I don't depend on my job. I don't want to depend on it. I make my own way. So I want you to start researching different types of income streams. There is selling products, there's selling services. You can do affiliate marketing. There are a million ways to make extra income streams. You can check out this video right here for some side hustle ideas. Also, there's a really cool website called sidehustlestack.co that has a whole database of all kinds of side hustles. So you're bound to find something that works for you. But the bottom line is, find something to monetize outside of your paycheck. The theme for September is first believing that there are other ways to make money outside of your paycheck, for embodying that attitude and going out and finding it, because there is something extra that you can do to provide value for the world, to get paid well for it, that is not your paycheck. The other theme of September is, once you find a side hustle idea, stick with it until it works. Too many people jump around from one side hustle idea to another before they really get any traction on any one of them. So it's about keeping the faith, sticking to something long enough for it to work, rather than getting distracted by shiny object syndrome and never really making headway on anything. All right, now in the month of October, we are going to harvest all the work that we've been doing since April to prepare to ask for a raise. And in October, you're gonna schedule a meeting with your manager and go ahead and stick the landing. Basically, a week or two before you wanna have the meeting, you wanna email your manager and say, hey, can we schedule a meeting to talk about compensation? You're gonna first thank them for their time, tell them how much you love working with them, and then you're gonna make them aware of all of the major contributions that you've made over the last 6 months. You're gonna go through that list of things that you've been documenting. And then you're gonna say, based on all these contributions, I believe that a more appropriate salary range for someone of my experience level is XYZ dollar amount. That's how you're gonna ask for that raise. Remember, if you don't ask, you don't get. And hey, if you're polite about it, the worst you're gonna get is a no. And then you're gonna be exactly where you were to begin with, so you're not gonna be any worse off. So it really doesn't hurt to ask. Remember what I said about advocating for yourself? If you wanna get richer, you need to learn to ask for what you want, to define your own value. Don't let other people dictate your value for you, and make sure you get paid what you're worth. All right, now in the month of November, I want you to reinvest all of that extra income. Hopefully you've gotten that raise. You also created a side hustle that's bringing in some extra money, or at least starting to. And the key here is to rein in that lifestyle creep and get in the habit of, when you make more, you invest and save more, rather than simply just saving more. Because have you ever noticed how some people, they seem to make a lot of money, but they never seem to really get ahead or build any real wealth either? As soon as they get a raise, they go out and buy a nicer car, move into a nicer apartment, and their expenses just keep going up and up and up, so that even though they're making way more than they used to, they're not actually further ahead financially. You don't want to get in the habit of lifestyle creep. And now when we finally reach the month of December, you're gonna look back and be like, holy crap, how did all that time go by? Look at all the progress that I've made. Wow, I've made so many changes in my finances, and you're gonna be so proud of yourself. So when you get to the month of December, take that time to really celebrate. Look back on all the progress that you've made. Fill out your financial snapshot again to see how much your net worth has gone up, how much debt you've paid off, how much savings and investments you've accumulated, and take a moment to celebrate. I don't think we do that nearly enough. So that's the month to celebrate, reflect on your progress. And because over these 12 months, you've been working on building the skills and habit to become someone who is way better at saving money, spending money, making money, and investing money, and doing it consciously, you're gonna be able to achieve bigger and bigger financial goals every year from here on out. Remember, it's not just about how much money you'll have, but also about the habits you've built and who you'll become. Here's to you, and here's to making 2025 the richest year of your life.